Yo, what's up guys? Another giant abyss video, which has been a little bit of time since I made one. There's not been too much progression in like any speed teams, but this is a speed team with the lowest room requirements and then also showing free-to-play options with that. So might you be right away like, say those are not free-to-play units, there's a Dapper in there, there's a Maisto in there, there's that kind of stuff in there. Don't worry, we're going to replace those as well, but we're also going to include those to showcase how it would work if you do have those units. So first of all, this is exactly the same team that I'm running. However, this is a bit of a lower room requirement because it has a few very specific things. I do know about this version before, but I didn't really manage to showcase it. Lex actually emailed me saying like, yo, I have this team and it's so much easier to rune than that to actually showcase because there's a few tricks to it. And thanks for Lex for letting me lend his account because I do know the tricks about it. It's just a lot of fine tuning to actually make it work in the first place. So what is that making it work in the first place? Well, let's look at a run and then you can probably point out what it is already. Don't worry, we're going to replace the Deborah, we're going to replace the Maisto. But the main thing is we're going to make the HP of the golems just above 50%. Therefore, they don't have the passive, which has the damage reduction. For that reason that the side crystals are low enough HP, Maisto will still go for the skill 3. And therefore, you have a very fast run without having to have a crazy Luna or... well, not a crazy Luna, but a crazy Julie. So your Julie requirements are a whole lot lower than what you normally have. And this is running like 21 seconds, which is really insane. So, okay, just too late. So we can just check another run. You can see what happens. And this is just super consistent. It's doing this all the time. It's very specifically tuned to make the golems about like 51, 52% HP. Very nice fine tuning on that. It takes a little bit of time on that, but I will also showcase how you can help that fine-tuning because he did tell me the exact numbers that you need to have for your Julie to hit. So what does that mean exactly for the runes? Well, in this case, we have fight runes on the Julie. Can you do this without fight runes? You can, but it works better with. Then we also have the Maisto, which is on a rage set. And I'm just gonna go through all of the sets. Triple fight. And this thing is the damage set. And then this thing is just a triple fight. But what makes this different than my Julie? Because my Julie is just full on damage. But this Julie is actually specifically trying to do just under 3k damage. He did actually mention that he is trying to do... he told me that you want to do less than 2,970 damage and you want to get as close to 2.9ks. So might you ask like, okay, but how the hell am I gonna know how much my Julie needs to do 2.9ks? Because there's artifacts in there, there's a lot of things in there that you might know like, okay, I'm not entirely sure like how much this Julie would do. It would be easy if you just tell me like, okay, this amount of crit damage and this amount of attack. Well, the thing is, because of artifacts, it is not as clean that way as it used to be. So one way that you could test that is the following. So how can you calculate that your Julie does as close to 2.9k as possible? Well, it's very simple. In this case, I have his JSON logged in on the optimizer. You see the current set. So I'm just going to use whatever he has currently runed and locking those in. And then we're going to go to the damage calculation. So for the damage calculation, of course, we want to set it on 1000 shots. We do want to set it on, well, the multiplier is already in there. You do want to put the right amount of defense from the golems in there on the waist, which is a 1224. You can look that up on Swar Farm. Then I rather put in the amount of fight sets in here, plus the attack lead and everything, rather than putting it in here. I do know you can place it in here as well, but personally, I just prefer to put it in there. That's just me. So I do have 8 fight sets plus a 25 lead that adds up to a 89. And then if we apply all of that, and we do the calculation, we will actually see that we do get exactly the 2.9k pretty much. So might you ask like, okay, say, but how do I do this for my thing? Well, the easiest what you can do right now is just say, let's say we go for this to about this. And then let's say we already lock in the artifacts and we are allowed to keep all runes. And then you just start adding in all of the things that you need. Let's say all of these, remove this, put this to 25. This, and then you can just say like, okay, these are all builds where Julie has the exact amount of damage that you need. And that is how easy to get it to the right stats. Sure, you need to get in the right speed, which I will check in a second how much that actually is. But this way it's pretty easy. Like I literally have, oh, I'm sitting in front of it, but I have 700 builds right now possible where the Julie has the exact amount of speed and the exact amount of, well, not the exact amount of speed, but the exact amount of attack and crit damage and artifact damage that you would need for that. So you have to keep in mind that I already used the artifacts in there and therefore I locked the artifacts. You can also unlock the artifacts, but that does make it where your estimation for this gets a lot higher, but it is possible to calculate that at the same time if you would like so. Then the next question might be, what about the speed? So in this case, the speeds, these are the speeds that he has locked in, so it is a little bit faster than needed. Let's actually put it down to the minimum speeds that you would need for this, because you do need your Luna to take a double turn to make the best amount of damage. Also, when you go for the free-to-play units, you still need your Luna to take a double turn to make it the best amount of damage, so therefore you need your Aprilia fast enough, and I think also your Julie fast enough, and after that it doesn't really matter. So the minimum amount of speeds would be looking exactly like this. So 60 on the Julie, 84 on the Aprilia, those are the standard numbers. Mephisto on 49, Luna on 50. Make sure that the tuning of the right order is still there, that the Mephisto moves in front of the Luna. And then the GBah, I think you can make the GBah up towards, let's see, what is the... If you go for that exact 50, then you can't make the GBah faster than plus 30. We are, of course, going to replace the GBah because we're going to be using a Lin, which is the free-to-play option for that. You can also use the Homunculus, but the Homunculus is not that great next to a Mephisto because it can't go for its passive. So were we to put in a Lin over here right now, which we're going to do in a second, then we need the Lin on to be, I think it's like a 51. Let's see if that is correct. Yeah, that is a 51. Then you're exactly on the speed because you want to outspeed at least the 196. And in this case, you will have the Luna move, then you have the Lin move, and then you have Luna move again. So let's change that in this team. He does already have it runed up. Then it will be looking like this. I'm not sure if it will do enough damage for the Julie right now because we are removing an X amount of fight set. So let's just see if that works out right now. I'm not sure if he has that tuned where it is still fine because there's no fight runes on it right now. Might be that we do a little bit too much damage. Nope, it's still fine. Or a little bit too low damage, but it was still fine. So there is a little bit of back and forth on that. And then sure, you do less damage because of the GBah not being there, but it's still definitely enough. There's a few key things that I still have to mention because this team has a lot of like tricks and things. So still a 22-second team, and this is pretty much almost free to play. So this is just going incredibly fast. You definitely do not need the GBah. A lot of people are like, oh, I need the GBah, I need the GBah. No, you do not need the GBah. This is incredibly fast even without the GBah. Might you say like, oh, but do I need the Mephisto? Well, the Mephisto makes this very safe. The Mephisto makes this very easy and just a little bit better. But there is actually another way that you could do this even without the Mephisto. And that is actually going back to a good old Lucian. So let me showcase that as well, where you go for the Lucian. As you can see, super consistent, like 22-second runs, which is incredibly fast. And actually with the Lucian, rune requirements go down even a little bit more, but it does get a little bit more inconsistent. And why is that? Well, if we go for Lucian right now, and he told me just copy the whole set from you, that will work out. And then we can make that in the lead as well. So in this case, full free-to-play team, you might argue Lucian is not free-to-play, Julie is not free-to-play, but you have a lot of those 4-star chosen events, so I count that as free-to-play these days. So if we go for this, let's see what happens. There's still a few things on the Mephisto team that I do want to mention in just a second, which makes the teaming and the timing and the tuning a little bit better. But this still also works. Plus, if you use a Lucian, Lucian is super easy to clear the whole thing by itself for like the wave clearing. So might as well put triple fight on Lucian. If you use this, I would highly recommend to put triple fight on Lucian because Lucian for sure will clear that whole thing. There's absolutely pretty much no way where the Lucian wouldn't clear that. That also does mean that your Luna and Lin are going to be dealing more damage, and therefore you are, it's easy to just clear this boss, whereas in this case it was a little bit tricky to the point, like, okay, are we actually dealing enough damage on the Luna and on the Lin, which makes it a lot easier if you do have that Lucian on triple fight. Plus, if you have the Lucian, I would recommend to use the Homunculus rather than the Lin, because then you have the passive of the Homunculus that can make a cleanup in case that things fail. So most free-to-play team out there would be those 4 plus a Homunculus. I think that is your best bet for clearing this dungeon. And in this case, sure, you're gonna get a counter if you maybe add like 1 shield set or here or there that could maybe add in a little bit extra. But it is slightly lacking damage. If you have better runes, then you could go for a full free-to-play route. But it's still free-to-play, like 28 seconds. It is harder to rune than the Tasha variants, for sure. For sure, it absolutely is. But it is a very nice way of clearing it if you do want to add something a little bit faster, if you have the rune quality to do it for. So this is a like 22-second average. There's one more thing that you have to keep in mind, or actually two more things that you have to keep in mind with the Mephisto team. One, the Mephisto does damage from how much HP he was taking from all of the units based on his skill 2. For that reason, you want to have a decent amount of HP on all of your units for the Mephisto to do a good amount of damage. What does that mean? Well, one of the units has to have a decent amount of HP, or well, multiple. In this case, if you go for the GBah, just add as much HP to the GBah as possible. If you go for a Lin, just add damage to the Lin, because Lin is mainly scaling on enemy max HP, so the higher crit damage, the better. You can also, if your Luna's overkilling things, you can put like HP artifacts on these sides, like HP base artifacts. And same for the Aprilia, because it has very low base HP. And therefore the Mephisto skill 2 is just gonna do more damage. Because in the end, you do need your Mephisto on a pretty good set to deal enough damage of that 51%. Because in the end, you are fighting that boss. That's the moment these golems are below 50% HP. They're going to add up, like, I think it's a 40% in their passive or something like that. Let's see how much that is. So if they, reduce 40% of the damage if they're below 50% HP. So you don't want to be hitting that. For that reason, there's one more trick to it, which is making your Aprilia not too high on damage. Because if your Aprilia is too high on damage, and that's mainly for the GBah setup, even if your Aprilia goes S2 into a Julie S2 into the Mephisto skill 1, it is still not below the 50% mark. And this case, it's not going to work out because it just put the runes wrong. I unruined the Lucian and I had the Mephisto already ruined, but then I went in with the Lucian. That's not how you do it. Let's go in again. This. Let's check out the team one more time. So then you can also notice these things itself. So in this case, can I pause it? No. Well, this is just like a little bit too little damage, and that is because of those fight sets. So that's the thing that I mentioned. Like, if you go for the Lin, you need a little bit more fight sets. This team is optimized for the team with the GBah. So on Lin, you can also easily put fight sets. You just need some crit damage fight sets. So once again, it's a little bit harder to rune, but it is also, you can make your Julie just a little bit more damage, maybe even on a triple fight or something like that. Some people are definitely going to be like, yeah, but this is not easy to rune. No. It's the easiest to rune as a speed team without a Tesha. Because, of course, the Tesha team is going to be easier. But yeah, if you do have like some fails on armor breaks and things like that, your run might end up pretty bad. You have to keep those things in mind. You might fail over, or yeah, you might fail there. But that is also why you have to make your team such a specific tuning that it actually does work. Mephisto is decent for the cleanup himself as well, because he does get some shields and things in. So that does help out a little bit. So yeah, this team is optimized right now for the GBah version. You have to make sure that you're always killing with the Mephisto and always killing with the Julie as they are supposed to do. The moment that you don't do that, it's just going to be bad. And in this case, I'm not sure if I changed anything else because this was working. Maybe it's just like the 5% damage fluctuation that there is in the game. But in this case, you do see that this team needs a little bit more fight runes. Because otherwise the Mephisto is just simply not doing enough damage. To make the Mephisto deal more damage when you know your Aprilia is pretty low on damage anyways, you might as well give the Aprilia HP artifacts, and with those HP artifacts the Mephisto would pick up a little bit more damage on that skill too. Let's actually see if I can do that. Let's just see, since we do know that it can fail a few times here and there, but let's see, since we don't really need the Aprilia on that much damage, because we don't want to do the Aprilia have too much damage, because you don't want to be fighting into that, what's it called? Into the passive of those golems. If it miscrits, then a miscrit. Okay. Failing a few runs can happen. But let's see if we replace those two things. So in this case, you would have to add a little bit more damage onto it from the runes itself. Does still have some decent artifacts. Let's see if we switch this out and then this, let's say for crit damage more is totally fine, because in the end, it's mainly crit damage more anyways. If we add in those two, we do remove a good amount of HP from that. I will place back the artifacts later in a second, but let's see how much this does right now, because there's very good odds that you pick up a little bit more damage. No, still too little damage. So yeah, with those things, you can kind of play around like, okay, where do you actually get your proper damage in? Because you need to make sure that your Luna does kill on the moment that it has to kill. And therefore the GBah version is a lot easier to rune, but yeah, if you don't have that, you got to be working with what you have. And it is still possible. It's just a little bit more difficult. You just have to make your Mephisto deal a little bit more damage, or your Julie more damage. Because in this case, the Julie is also dealing less damage. So if you upgrade your Julie a little bit, then it would be fine. Because the artifacts on the Julie right now are really bad, and it's really easy to upgrade the Julie to the right thing. But that is like, it's the reason that I never really showcased this team, because it's that specific on the tuning with the amount of damage that your Julie needs to do, that 2.9k or as close to the 2.9k as possible. That is where it gets like suddenly from 40 something seconds to 20 seconds. Just because that one tuning is exactly right. And then if the tuning is exactly right, well, we just go back to the Deborah team because that's where the tuning is exactly right. And you can see that it's just working magnificent and very strong and just super good. And this is just, if you want to farm Giants, which is the most farmed dungeon out there for a lot of people, yeah, then just this is, I guess, one of the fastest ways, if not the fastest teams that you can do without LD5s. Sure, you do need a Deborah for this to make it very fast. But I've also shown you, like, if you went for the Lin team and it does work according to plan, it's still like 22 seconds. It's just it's literally like one animation slower. So it's still incredibly fast. So that is it for this video. Lex, thanks again for letting me showcase this team on your account. And I hope you guys learned a thing or two and maybe can improve your Giants team. It is still easier to rune with the Tesha team if you don't have the craziest rune quality and you're currently working on the Tesha team. I highly recommend to use the Tesha team. If you didn't rune up the Tesha team yet, I will leave a link in the description down below. And guys, thanks a lot for watching and see you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab, which has the Dungeon Guide Archive and the Video Guide Archive, which contains all of the guides that you need. Hope to see you there.